The ballroom shimmered with golden light, every corner filled with the echoes of laughter and the clink of champagne glasses. Tonight was supposed to be my night. My law firm had just unveiled my name on the Wall of Honor, a symbol of years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and victories earned in silence. For a moment, I felt untouchable. Until the doors opened. There she was, Sophia, my wife of 11 years. But she wasn't walking toward me. She wasn't smiling for me. Her hand was tightly interlocked with Daniel Reed, her boss, the man I'd once invited into my home, the man who toasted with me when I signed million-dollar contracts. The room went silent, like air sucked out of a vacuum. And then laughter. Quiet at first, then louder. Colleagues I once called friends leaned into each other, whispering, sneering, pathetic. What a weak husband. And right there, in front of everyone, Sophia tilted her head, brushed her lips against Daniel's, and kissed him as if I no longer existed. The humiliation was choreographed, calculated, meant to shred me in front of the very people I worked my entire life to impress. As if that wasn't enough, she pulled an envelope from her clutch and pressed it into my chest. Her perfume lingered, but her words cut deeper than any blade. Here, Ethan, your first case as a lawyer, your own divorce. Make it quick. Daniel's smirk was worse than her betrayal. He leaned close, voice dripping with arrogance. Do us both a favor, don't drag this out. The entire ballroom waited for me to explode, to beg, to crumble. But I didn't. I smiled, slipped the envelope into my jacket, and walked away in silence. What they didn't realize was that my silence was already my sharpest weapon. Sophia and I hadn't always lived under chandeliers and marble ceilings. We began in a tiny, one-room apartment on the edge of the city, where the paint peeled from the walls and the heater rattled louder than the traffic outside. Back then, success was just a dream I carried in second-hand law books, their pages yellowed and edges torn. Every night I studied until dawn, scribbling notes by the dim light of a desk lamp we bought from a thrift shop. And every night, Sophia sat beside me, sometimes with her head resting on my shoulder, sometimes humming softly while cooking instant noodles on a rusted stove. We didn't have much, but we had each other, or at least that's what I believed. When I scraped together a few $100s to take the bar exam, she celebrated like I had won the lottery. When I earned my first client, a small case no one else wanted, she kissed me as if I had already conquered the world. And when I finally stood in a courtroom and won my first trial, tears ran down her face. Through the years, we climbed together, from broken furniture to designer couches, from counting pennies to million-dollar accounts. I worked 16-hour days, and she promised it would all be worth it. So I trusted her completely, blindly. I ignored the nights she stayed late at work. I dismissed the business trips with Daniel Reed that seemed too frequent, too convenient. Even when she returned with luxury handbags and jewelry I hadn't bought, I swallowed the unease, because in my heart I wanted to believe. I wanted to think that love, loyalty, and sacrifice still mattered. What I didn't realize then was that Sophia wasn't climbing with me. She was waiting, watching, planning, and the trust I thought was the foundation of our marriage was the very weapon she used to strike me down when my guard was lowest. Looking back now, the signs weren't just there. They were screaming at me. I was just too blind, too trusting, too in love to hear them. It started with small things. Her phone, once left carelessly on the couch or kitchen table, was now always face down, locked tight with a new password I didn't know. Her laughter, once genuine and unrestrained, turned into hushed whispers in the hallway, followed by silence the moment I entered the room. Then came the credit card bills. Receipts for restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel stays I couldn't remember booking. When I asked, she brushed it off with a smile. Work dinners, Ethan, Daniel insists. You know how demanding he is, and I believed her. Of course I did, because I wanted to. Because doubting her meant doubting the life we had built together. I remember finding a spa membership once, billed directly to my account. She laughed it away, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't worry about it, it's just self-care. Don't you want me to look good for you?" And I smiled, swallowed the unease, and told myself it didn't matter, but it did matter. Every hidden expense, every late-night meeting, every excuse was another fracture in a foundation I thought was unbreakable. And while I was building a future, case by case, brick by brick, Sophia was building a secret life with Daniel, a life she would reveal in the cruelest way possible before the entire world. The law firm's gala was supposed to be my crown jewel, the night I finally stood tall among the city's elite. My name was etched into the marble wall behind the stage, immortalized as a partner who had risen from nothing, but all anyone remembers from that night is her entrance. The ballroom froze as Sophia strolled in, her hand tangled with Daniel Reed's, their smiles rehearsed, their kiss brazen and unapologetic. Gasps rippled through the crowd before dissolving into cruel laughter. Partners I had admired, clients I had fought to win, colleagues I had mentored, all of them stared at me as though I were the evening's entertainment. I heard the whispers like knives slicing through the air. What kind of man lets this happen? Spineless. Pathetic. And then came the final strike. Sophia stepped forward, heels clicking like gunshots on marble, and pressed an envelope into my chest. Her perfume lingered, but her words carried venom. Your first case, Ethan. Your own divorce. Do us both a favor. Make it quick. Daniel smirked, his arm wrapped around her like a trophy. Don't drag this out, he whispered. The world waited for me to explode, to beg, to crumble. Instead, I smiled, slipped the envelope into my jacket, and walked away in silence. That silence was the beginning of their end. I didn't go home that night. I didn't drink, didn't call a friend, didn't scream into the emptiness of my car. Instead, I walked into my office, still in my suit, the echo of their laughter clinging to me like smoke. I sat down, opened my laptop, and stared at the glowing screen. That's when it happened. The pain, the humiliation, it didn't consume me. It sharpened me. Rage burns hot and quick, but clarity is cold and patient. And in that silence, I remembered something Daniel Reed had forgotten. His company existed because of me. Years ago, I had quietly poured $85 million into his tech firm, a silent investor, never demanding recognition, never asking for favors. He never cared to know who fueled his empire. To him, I was just another faceless wallet. But tonight, that faceless wallet had a name, and then there was Sophia. Every trip she flaunted online, every designer bag, every spa retreat, it all flowed through accounts tied back to me. I was the architect of her luxury, the silent sponsor of her glittering life. With each keystroke, I severed the strings. Credit cards frozen, bank accounts emptied, house access revoked, car privileges cancelled. In a matter of hours, her kingdom of glitter turned to dust, and I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to beg, because while they thought they had destroyed me in front of 100 people, I was about to destroy them in front of the world. I didn't go home that night. I didn't drink, didn't call a friend, didn't scream into the emptiness of my car. Instead, I walked into my office, still in my suit, the echo of their laughter clinging to me like smoke. I sat down, opened my laptop, and stared at the glowing screen. That's when it happened. The pain, the humiliation, it didn't consume me. It sharpened me. Rage burns hot and quick, but clarity is cold and patient. And in that silence, I remembered something Daniel Reed had forgotten. His company existed because of me. Years ago, I had quietly poured $85 million into his tech firm. A silent investor, never demanding recognition, never asking for favors. He never cared to know who fueled his empire. To him, I was just another faceless wallet. But tonight, that faceless wallet had a name. And then there was Sophia. Every trip she flaunted online, every designer bag, every spa retreat, it all flowed through accounts tied back to me. I was the architect of her luxury, the silent sponsor of her glittering life. With each keystroke, I severed the strings. Credit cards frozen, bank accounts emptied, house access revoked, Car privileges cancelled. In a matter of hours, her kingdom of glitter turned to dust, and I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to beg, because while they thought they had destroyed me in front of 100 people, I was about to destroy them in front of the world. At exactly 2 in the morning, when the city outside my office windows lay quiet and dark, I placed my hand on the mouse. One click, just one, and everything would change. Daniel Reed thought he was untouchable. He thought his company was bulletproof, his power unshakable. But what he didn't know was that his entire empire leaned on the quiet support of a man he tried to humiliate. Me. I hovered over the screen, my finger steady, my mind calm. Then, with a single confirmation, I withdrew every cent of my $85 million investment. The effect was immediate. Like pulling the foundation from a skyscraper, I could already see the cracks forming. His expansion plans? Frozen. His creditors? Alerted. His board? Furious by sunrise, the first wave hit. Daniel's stock began to tumble, investors demanding answers he couldn't give. By noon, phones across the city lit up with panic, and my own phone. It didn't stop buzzing first. It was Sophia, her name flashing across my screen again and again. I didn't answer. Then mutual friends. Then business associates. 10 missed calls. 20, 50. By evening, I had over 100 notifications, each more desperate than the last. Sophia's world was collapsing faster than she could process. Her cards were declined at her favorite boutique. Her car was repossessed in the middle of the street. The house she once bragged about online? Locked before she could even pack her things. But she didn't call to apologize. She didn't call out of love. She called to beg. Ethan, please. I need you. Just help me fix this. I didn't reply. I didn't even let her voice reach me. Because silence, I realized, cuts deeper than anger. Meanwhile, Daniel's empire bled. His name, once praised in financial circles, was now whispered in panic. Journalists caught the scent of blood, and by the end of the day, headlines screamed collapse. And I simply closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and let the silence do its work. They wanted me broken. Instead, I had become the storm they never saw coming. By the third day, the cracks had widened into a collapse. Daniel's company, once hailed as the next tech giant, was crumbling in front of the world. The financial news channels broadcasted his downfall like a live spectacle. Stocks plunge, investors flee. CEO Daniel Reed under fire. The very people who had praised his vision now tore him apart in interviews, calling him reckless, arrogant, unprepared. Inside the boardroom, chaos reigned. Investors demanded their money back. The board members, desperate to save themselves, turned against him. And within a week, the man who smirked at me in front of hundreds was stripped of his title, escorted out of his own building by security. And Sophia, her descent was even more brutal. The woman who once flaunted designer bags, glittering jewelry, and first-class vacations now couldn't even pay for groceries. Her credit cards were declined. Her phone was cut off. The car she loved to pose beside was towed away like trash. The mansion she adored became a prison she couldn't access, locked down with revoked rights she hadn't even realized I controlled. She moved from penthouses to cheap rentals, from sparkling champagne to bitter instant coffee. The texts started flowing in again. At first, she was demanding. "You can't do this to me, Ethan." Then it shifted to pleading. "Please, I need you. I made a mistake." But I never replied. Every message was another reminder of her arrogance, her betrayal, her laughter as she handed me those divorce papers in front of everyone. Now, the laughter was gone, replaced by silence, desperation, emptiness, and I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I simply let her world collapse under the weight of her own choices, because sometimes the cruelest punishment is watching someone drown in the very ocean they dragged you into. On the 5th night after the gala, I heard a knock on my door. Steady at first, then desperate. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Daniel Reed. The man who once strutted through ballrooms with my wife at his side now stood disheveled in the doorway. His tailored suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened, his face pale and drawn. The confident smirk that once taunted me was gone, replaced by panic. "You can't do this," he growled, though his voice cracked with weakness. "You can't just pull out. We had an agreement." I stepped aside, letting him glimpse the stack of unopened envelopes on my desk, each one filled with contracts, letters, terms, agreements. I said calmly, "Daniel, you broke them the moment you tried to humiliate me." His fists clenched at his sides, his breathing shallow. "She'll ruin you," he snapped. "Sophia will bleed you dry." I leaned closer, my voice low, deliberate. "She already tried. But here's the difference. I was prepared. You weren't." For the first time since I'd known him, Daniel Reed had nothing to say. His jaw tightened, but no words came. His empire was ash, his pride shattered. He looked at me then, not as a rival, not as an enemy, but as the man who had beaten him without raising his voice. I didn't need to slam the door. I didn't need to threaten him. I just let the silence hang between us, heavier than any blow. Finally, he turned and walked away. The same way I had at the gala, but there was one difference. When I left, I still had everything. When he left, he had nothing. By the end of the week, the dust had settled. My firm was thriving. New clients poured in, drawn not only to my reputation, but to the strength they had witnessed in me. I had been humiliated publicly, but I rose privately, stronger than before. Daniel Reed, once the face of ambition, was erased from his own company's website. The board replaced him with someone else, someone safer, someone less reckless. His empire was gone, his name dragged through headlines as a cautionary tale, and Sophia, she fell hardest of all. From shimmering gowns to borrowed clothes, from luxury penthouses to a cramped, bare apartment, from mocking me in front of hundreds to sending text after text unanswered, begging me to just speak to her once. The divorce papers she shoved into my chest at the gala, they still sat unopened on my desk. A sealed reminder of the night she thought she had broken me. But here's the truth, she didn't break me. She revealed me. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't even love her. I simply saw her clearly, stripped of the illusions I had once built around her. Betrayal carries a cost. A cost higher than diamonds, higher than money, higher than pride, and she paid it in full. Because justice, true justice, doesn't roar. It whispers, it waits. It lets silence do the work, and silence had dismantled them both, piece by piece. If you've ever faced betrayal, remember this. You don't need to scream. You don't need to beg. You don't need to fight the way they expect you to. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't chaos, it's silence. It's building yourself stronger while their own choices drag them down. Because betrayal always collapses under its own weight. If this story moved you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales of betrayal, justice, and silent revenge. And maybe, just maybe, it will remind someone out there that silence can be the sharpest weapon of all.